Hello, welcome to everyone. We are delighted to be with you today at the Château de Chantilly. I am with Mathieu Deldicque. Mathieu Deldicque is an archivist, paleographer, PhD in art history, heritage curator and director of the Musée Condé in the Château de Chantilly. And we are honored to be invited as guests for this very special online conversation. We are here today with Mathieu for a very special occasion. That is the exhibition on the Très Riches Heures of Jean, Duke of Berry. It's an exceptional exhibition that will last until the 5th of October. And if you want to see it, you really have to hurry. So Mathieu, thank you for welcoming us. And could you introduce this amazing exhibition?
Yes, hello everyone and welcome to the Château de Chantilly. It's a great honor to have you here for this very special opportunity about maybe the most famous manuscript of the world, the most reproduced, who define our imaginary of Middle Ages. And this manuscript is kept here in the Château. It's not very seen regularly, and this manuscript presented some damage. So several years ago, we decided to restore the manuscripts and to enjoy this opportunity of restoration, to display it as it has never been before, partly unbound, and to put this manuscript in its context of creation with all the books of hours of the Duc de Berry reunited all together in one place for the first time since the 15th century, and to explain how this manuscript is iconic, and above all to share the new discoveries that we have thanks to the analysis.
So we have the book that is the reference book on the Très Riches Heures du Duc de Berry, edited by Mathieu Deldicque, with articles from the most important specialists for each specialty. So we have also the translation in English, and it's almost completely sold out. So it's really a one-of-a-kind exhibition. How many times were displayed the Très Riches Heures in history?
So the Très Riches Heures was, the manuscript was acquired by the Duc d'Aumale, who was the Prince of Chantilly, who built this place in 1855. And since his death in 1897, it has been displayed 3 times. So it's very few, and these opportunities are quite amazing to have a contact, a physical contact with this masterpiece. And this time it's a unique time because the famous calendar is unbound. So you can see it like drawings.
So let's have a few views of the place, Château de Chantilly and Musée Condé. And so there is a very special thing here. All the works that are conserved in the museum, they cannot leave the place.
Exactly. So Chantilly is not very far from Paris, 40 kilometers in the north. And this is the most important collection of all masters in France after the Louvre. And usually people don't know that. So you have to come here because this collection can't move. This collection was acquired by the Duc d'Aumale, so this prince during the 19th century. And when he died, he bequests the collection with a testament that, and it's forbidden to move the collection. So please come here and see our exhibition and the collection because it's marvelous.
And Chantilly recently was awarded the favorite museum of French people.
Exactly, in 2025, so
exactly.
we are very proud of it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, So we will discover the Très Riches Heures. So of course we have a very short time. So we will talk with Mathieu only about few things related to the Très Riches Heures. First, we will discover who is the Duke of Berry, especially on the collector side, because he was a great mécène and art lover. Then we will go closer to the Très Riches Heures, that is a book of hours, and we will explain to you what is a book of hours, and we will see how this kind of object can become also a jewel in a way. And then we will talk about illumination, that is an art that is a little bit forgotten today, but was major art at that time, and that we can be considered as precious art. You will understand why we can make a connection with jewelry arts that are at the heart of what we do and what we love at l'École School of Jewelry Arts. So let's start with the Duke of Berry. This is a portrait of the Duke of Berry. Mathieu, can you introduce him?
Yes, you can see here the miniature of the month of January that opens the book of hours of the Très Riches Heures. So you have the Duc de Berry, who presents himself in his book, and he is here as a old man. He is around 70 years old, and he's in his banqueting hall having guests with a table displaying his silverware, tableware. He was one of the most important patrons of art of the late Middle Ages France. He was a great prince because he was a son of a king, he was a brother of a king, and an uncle of another king. He had a very long life through 1340 to 1416, so he died very old for that period. And you have to imagine that period was very complicated in France because there was a 100 Years' War between England and France. There was the Great Plague, there was 2 popes, a civil war, so a very complicated time. But paradoxically, that time was a golden age for arts. And the Duc de Berry was maybe the most important patron of art, and he loved jewels, gems, buildings, and manuscripts, such as the Très Riches Heures. And here he ordered his last book of hours, so his last prayer book, and he asked 3 young people, 3 young illuminators coming from the Netherlands, from Nijmegen, called the Limburg Brothers, to paint his most precious book.
It had to be a masterpiece. Exactly.
So the beginning of this work was around 1411, so the Duc de Berry was 70 years old, and he was maybe the climax of his collection.
And we will see during the talk that the Limburg brothers, the painters, they were not only painters, they had a strong connection with precious art, with goldsmithing in particular.
Yes, exactly. So they came from Nijmegen as very young men, and 2 of the 3 brothers were trained in Paris to the art of goldsmithing, and that explains the links between goldsmithing and jewels and illumination in that book.
And we understand why all the precious tableware pieces, things like that, and jewels the Duke is wearing are so delicately represented. They understood perfectly the objects. So we have several portraits of the Duke of Berry in the exhibition. You were aware to gather amazing pieces from a very different place in the world, not only from France. And this very impressive and important statue, a recumbent statue of the Duke of Berry, is displayed in the exhibition.
Yes, so this is one of the masterpieces of the art of sculpture in the late Middle Ages in France. So it was a tomb of the Duc de Berry ordered for his son's chapel. So it's chapel in Bourges, his capital in the center of France. And you can see his face and you recognize a link between that statue and the illumination of the Très Riches Heures of January. But look at his feet, you have a bear. Actually, it was the emblem of the Duc de Berry because there is a connection with the sons between the bear and the Berry, the land of the Duke in France.
And bears were animals that were quite prestigious during the Middle Ages. Today we consider that lion is the king of animals, but before the lion it was bear.
Exactly, that's why he adopts bear as his emblem.
Another portrait of the Duke of Berry, it's painted by the master of Boucicaut, who was an illuminator, a painter illuminator. It's a little bit later, probably, this representation in the book by Bartholomeus Anglicus, Bartholomeus the Englishman. Probably one of the most important books of the time, written during the 13th century, between 2030 and 2040, on properties of things. And in this very important encyclopedia, we have a book that is dedicated to gemstone colors and metals. And it was a very popular, very diffused book during the Middle Ages. And the brother of the Duke of Berry, King Charles V, started a campaign of translations, usually from Latin to French. And this is the French translation by Jean Corbechon that was ordered by the king. And it was very, very diffused until the 16th century, and even after the invention of printing. And here on this illumination, it's in the beginning of the book 16 about gems. We have a portrait, very interesting, of the Duke of Berry seated, and he is welcoming men who are presenting in front of him a casket, an open casket filled with very large blue and red gemstones. And we can see that the Duke is observing one of them. One of the kneeling figures is showing also a ring set with a big red gem. And there is a testimony by Tommaso Terzo di Saluzzo in a book, the book of the Errant, that was a very popular book of the time, who tells about the Duke of Berry during an important negotiation. He interrupted the negotiation because he wanted to welcome some gem dealers, some merchants, who came from Venice to show him wonderful gems. So he was a gem lover.
He was definitely a gem lover, and here this manuscript was not owned by him, but by a connection, a duke who knew him. And to illustrate the definition of gemstones, there is this depiction of the duke. So he was known by everyone as a gem lover, and you can see that merchant, Italian merchant, Parisian merchant, wanted to provide him with the most beautiful and expensive gems of that period.
And he wears himself a hat badge and also a kind of pendant in blue and red gems surrounded by pearls. And in the inventories, because all the inventories that were written during the life of Duke of Berry are preserved and were transcribed during the 19th century.
Yes, this is a real luck, because obviously the most part of the collection disappeared, but we know that the collection, thanks to the inventory of his lifetime and of his death. And so we can see just by texts and documents that he had hundreds and hundreds of gems, jewels, precious objects, and he was very keen on that. He spent a large amount of money of that, and at the end of his life, he had so many debts that a great part of his collection has to be sold.
I understand. So, among the numerous precious objects he had, a lot of them were were purchased for gifts, and himself he received a lot of precious gifts, and it was a very important part of the collection. As you said, most of the pieces disappeared, unfortunately, because it's the destiny of precious objects to recover the metal and the gems, etc. But some of the pieces are preserved, and you tracked them and you found them for the exhibition, and some of them are on display. So we have several examples to show you. We have the Royal Gold Cup that Mathieu was...
This is a masterpiece of the British Museum in London. And actually, it's a cup with enamel depicting the life of Saint Agnes, who was the saint patron of the brother of the Duc de Berry, the King Charles V. So it's meant to have been a gift ordered by the Duc de Berry and given to his brother. And through history, then it crossed the channel and was bequeathed to the British Museum. But you can see that Parisian goldsmithing art in that piece, with the precious gems, with the enamel and the colors that are amazing. And the other object is another jewel. It's a gift given by the Duc de Berry to the Queen of Castile in Spain. So now it's in the Cathedral of Burgos, in the treasury. So it was in a treasury of a cathedral, so that's why it was not melted or sold. And you can
it's a good place to hide.
Exactly, it's a good place to hide. And this is a great amount of technique made in Paris, lots of different gems, and it's just a testimony of few pieces among a great collection of that kind of pieces. Yeah.
And at that time, Paris was probably one of the places in the world that was really brilliant in goldsmithing and silversmithing and jewelry production. Because probably of the taste also of the king and the princes. And so it was very, very prestigious, and few of them were conserved, fortunately, and probably the most famous precious work that was ordered by the Duke of Berry, that is still preserved, is probably the Holy Thorn reliquary, that is also conserved in the British Museum in London. So what is interesting in this object, the dimensions, it's very high.
30 centimeters, so it's very high for a piece of jewelry for that time. Yeah.
And 1.4 kilograms of gold with enamel and gems like pearls, red gems that are identified on the website of a British museum as rubies, but I can guess that they are not rubies, but mostly, I think, red spinels. And also sapphires, and we have on the detail, you can see the huge cabochon of sapphire, very, very beautiful, very good clarity, and above it we can see the relic of one of the thorns of the thorns crown of Christ. He was wearing at the time of the crucifixion. And relics are very important, and reliquaries are very important objects because for the Christian at the time, relics that are material remnants from sacred people like the Christ, the Virgin, the saints, they were considered as the most precious things, and in order to protect them and to showcase them, they deserved the most precious things like precious metals and precious gems. So there is a spiritual signification in the creation of these precious masterpieces. And there is a comparison between relics and gems in Christian theology, like, for example, the abbot Suger. It's not the same time, it's before, during the 12th century, who wrote the impression, the exaltation he had contemplating beautiful gems related to in association with his faith. So this kind of objects were very important. Other examples that are preserved.
Yes, so you have to imagine this collection of a great prince, and he was surrounded by artists, goldsmiths, sculptors, illuminators, and all that people exchange a lot. And for the Très Riches Heures, the three illuminators, the Limber brothers, they had access to the collection of the prince, so they had access to the jewels and gems. And for instance, in the manuscripts of the Très Riches Heures, we can have testimonies of the disappeared collection of the Très Riches Heures. For instance, here you have the exaltation of the cross during the Mass, and you have this very precious cross. And we discover some linked with a cross now in Vienna, still conserved, which was maybe ordered by a brother of the Duc de Berry, the Duke of Burgundy. And you have this same technique of a cross made around 1400 in Paris with different gems. And I don't say that this cross was in the collection of the Duc de Berry and seen by the illuminators, but this kind of cross. And the three brothers were very aware of the art of goldsmithing and very keen on representing in the Très Riches Heures the jewels and jewelry of the Duc de Berry.
We have other examples also here.
Other examples showing the links between illumination and precious objects. This medallion, now in Baltimore, in the Walters Art Museum, is made with silver, gilded silver, and enamel. It shows Emperor Augustus and his vision of the Virgin. And you can see the same technique and these little points, in a way, in the Très Riches Heures with the Virgin Mary in a medallion in that pages. So lots of links between the Très Riches Heures and this kind of art in Paris.
So what you wrote in the book is, of course, the new silversmithing, goldsmithing, and they were able to reproduce them in their representations, but also they inspired the goldsmiths to create new kind of jewels with representations that are
That's the case here, because the medallion is a bit later than the illumination. So there was this exchange in the two directions between illuminators and goldsmiths.
And at that time, precious arts like goldsmithing, silversmithing were considered probably in the hierarchy of arts the most prestigious. And it will change during the 15th century.
Yes, at that time, painting was not at the top of the arts. Jewels, gems, illuminations, tapestries are in a great number in the inventories, but you don't have, or very few, painting on canvas or on wooden boards. Yes, the hierarchy was totally different.
Mm-hmm. It's a moment of change. So the Duke was also passionate with gems and particularly with glyptics. So we went inside the exhibition to see the wonderful cameos that are on display.
In an antique style, but actually they were ordered in the 15th century.
And the crystal vase that actually is composite,
yes.
part is from the 14th
century, yes. And so the crystal, but also jasper, amethyst. So these precious stones was in the heart of the love of the Duc de Berry, of his interest. And actually, it was not melt, because on the contrary of instead of silver and gold. So we conserve some pieces of that. For instance, for the cup of Saint John the Baptist, coming from Bourges, actually, it used to have inside the head of Saint John the Baptist in silver and gold, and it was melted by the Duc de Berry himself, because he had to pay his troops. So he lacked some money, and melt is on collection for that.
So melting is terrible, but of course, if you need money, you don't have a choice. So, but the jasper cup was preserved.
Yes.
And regarding the amethyst cup?
Yeah, it's an interesting piece, because it came from Prague, from Czech Republic, from Bohemian. And actually the mother of the Duc de Berry was from Prague, from Bohemian. So this taste of precious stone like jasper and amethyst, very popular in Prague and Bohemia during the 14th century. Maybe this is a link to explain this very particular and singular taste shown here with the Duc de Berry collection.
So Prague was a very important center for glyptics.
Yes.
I believe it began in the 16th century with Rodolphe II, but before
yes.
It was already the case. And the cameo is very interesting because it's in the ancient style, Roman style, but it's not Roman.
Exactly, it's not Roman. It could be Italian or French. We don't know precisely for that example. And actually, it used to adorn a cross, like we just saw. The cross was melted, but not the cameo. So this is a testimony of that taste and of that passion for antiquity, which is not something for the 16th century, not only for the Renaissance, but before, at the beginning of the 15th century, the Duc de Berry was a kind of humanist, or the ancestor of the humanists.
And that's what testimony is a library, because he was not only passionate with gemstones and precious arts, but also by books. And so he had in his library hundreds of books.
300.
300 of books. So let's talk about the books of the Duke and, of course, in particular, the book of ours and Très Riches Heures.
So the books was the heart of the collection, and actually for the exhibition and the catalogue, a scholar studied the books preserved from the collection, and she discovered 127 books that survived. It's all over the world in the greatest collection, and so with several topics, subjects, but the most important books, most precious books was the Books of Hours. So a Book of Hours is a prayer book. When you have some money in Middle Ages and you wanted to have one book, you add a Book of Hours, a prayer book, a book of prayers following the hours of the day. And the Duc de Berry had 18 Books of Hours and ordered 6 among the 18, and the 6 of them are in Chantilly for the exhibition, and they have great names like Grandes Heures, Petites Heures, Très Belles Heures, but the most important, the most iconic Books of Hours of the Duc de Berry is obviously the Très Riches Heures.
And when I went visiting the exhibition, I was struck by the dimensions of the Très Riches Heures. Because usually when you see reproductions, very often the dimensions are not noted, and the Book of Hours of the Duc de Berry is almost
that size,
A4 format,
exactly,
more or less. So it's a very important book in size. That means that he couldn't transport it. He had to stay in his library to read it, to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's not only a prayer book, it's a book of a status of a prince showing his passion for art, his devotion, and it's a kind of memorial for the Duke, because so he was very old at that time when he ordered it, and he wanted to have a testament in a way. That's why in the calendar you have so many castles, some episodes of his life, his portraits, and it's a resume of his life, of his career, and his passion of art.
And this book also is about time.
Yes.
And time under different forms. So we are in a Christian context, so we have the divine time and also the human time. And in this book, we can see representation related to the different concepts of time. So we have the prayers that can be related to divine time. And we have the seasons that are more related to human time. So we have human activities that are represented in the seasons, in the calendar, and sacred representations, as we can see here on this page, full of rebel angels. So regarding the calendar.
And here you have a depiction of the month of February, and this is exactly that question of time. So this is the time of God, with all the things listed in the text page in front of the illumination. Mm-hmm. But for that great page of illumination, you have the time of the season, of the work in the fields, and here, so we are in February, so we are like the peasants freezing around the chimney, showing their intimacy to the fire. So it's a funny images also, and around you have this landscape with snow, and actually this is the first landscape with snowy landscape of the history of French art and maybe Occidental art conserved. So it's a revolution in terms of art, and the Limbo brothers were so new in their approach of modern landscape, of depicting the sky, the weather, but also the light and the details. Look at the details, the sheep. You have some birds. It's a small world in each illumination.
And also the prayers.
Yes, here it's after the calendar that shows the season and the works of every month, you have some most regular, in a way, devotional pictures. Like here on the left you have the paradise, the heaven, and on the right you have the initiation to the Virgin Mary. And I love the how do you call that, this mise en page, so this construction and composition. You have the white of the parchment, it's a goat skin for the parchment. You have all the borders with the coat of arms of the Duc de Berry, some angels, and so on. And that's very revolutionary way of composition of the heaven, with that circle of also this perspective, Italian perspective for the church where the Virgin Mary is. So it's every page is a revolution.
We can spend a lot of
Exactly.
time on each page,
Yes.
of course. So you really have to visit the exhibition if you want to see these marvels in real. So regarding the Book of Hours, so Book of Hours are not only books, they are also precious masterpieces. So the Très Riches Heures is a very large book of hours, but more frequently we find a smaller book of hours, smaller because it was easier to transport, and a book of hours was very personal. So, and it was a very intimate luxury in a way, because the Book of Hours, the paintings were for you. It was not for everybody. And what was very important also is to create a very precious object. And during the 16th century, the Book of Hours became more popular. This kind of book was dedicated to the lay, and it developed since the 13th century and reached a climax during the 15th and 16th century. And here we have two examples of small books of hours, ordered, both of them by King François I. And on the left, the first one was created by Noël Bellemare. It was purchased by King François I to a merchant named Allard Plomier for his niece, Jeanne d'Albret. And it's a masterpiece with a binding, very precious binding in gold, enameled gold, set with turquoise rubies, very large and important carnelian. The decoration is inspired by Persian arts, and we have a big red gem at the level of the clasp that is a garnet, but apparently it was not the original stone. But this masterpiece was purchased a few years ago by the Louvre thanks to generous donators. And another masterpiece also of more or less of the same time, it was ordered to King François I in the 1530s. You worked on it.
Yeah.
There is an important publication.
Yes, because after that is the wife of his son, the Queen Catherine Medici, this Florentine princess, inherited it and completed this Book of Hours with lots of portraits of her family. Mm-hmm. And actually that explains a very personal link between book lovers and the books of hours. This is the most intimate and personal book that exists and during that period. And here, for the binding, this is a precious example of enamel and gold, and you have the two hands depicting and showing the love of Catherine Medici for her late husband, King Henry II, so the son of Francis I. And so that's why you have on the corners the H of Henry and the C of Catherine.
The initials.
Yes.
Absolutely. During the 16th century, probably a little bit before, the Book of Hours became also jewels for the ladies. So very few of them are conserved, and most of them are conserved in English museums, like in the British Museum or in the British Library. So these books were very small, as you can see, and the Book of Hours ordered by King François I, the dimensions we didn't say, it's less than 10 centimeters in height. So it's a very, very small object. And you can see with the ring, and even on that of Catherine de' Medici, we see a ring, a gold ring. That is a clue about the way the women could wear this kind of object. And you can see on the portrait of Mary Tudor how this kind of object was worn. So hanging on the waist, on the girdle. So we call it in English girdle prayer book. In French it's a little bit different, the name. And these books were illuminated and covered with very precious bindings in gold. And the example of Anne Boleyn girdle prayer book, very refined, with enamel, and it's chased and repierced. And we know that Hans Holbein, the younger, who worked for King Henry VIII, produced. He was also a jeweler. And some of his drawings are conserved in the British Museum, and we have this example of a Book of Hours binding, very, very refined. So let's talk about illumination as a technique, and we will talk also about the materials that are used for this art. So the exhibition actually is the end of a very long project of restoration and analysis.
Thanks to the Center of French Museums in Paris, we had the first opportunity to analyze this manuscript in terms of pigments, of underdrawing, of just to understand the way it was created through the 15th century. And so the materials were in the heart of that analysis. And so we will share with our friends some new discoveries about the Très Riches Heures.
So, of course, the results have been published in this reference book. And so it's interesting because the scientists could analyze at the atomic level, the characteristics of the different parts of the manuscript. So, of course, the support, the parchment, and then the techniques used by the painters, because what is interesting also to highlight in the Très Riches Heures is, of course, we talk about the Limbourg brothers, but they are not the only painters who work on this work.
Yes, actually, the Limbourg brothers and Duc de Berry died, all of them died in 1416, and the book was unfinished and completed. So 2 other generations complete the manuscripts in the middle of the 15th century and at the end of the 15th century. So with the analysis, we had the opportunity to explain and to discover who made what at what time.
And what is interesting is usually, as a painting expert, you will be able to say, observing the details and the style, which master is it. And with science, it's another way, because each painter has his own recipes for the pigments and the bindings, and and they are aware of the different recipes depending on the painters.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting to discover that. So regarding the technique, illumination technique, so today it's a little bit niche. Very few people know about illumination, and Mathieu is among the best specialists in the history of illumination. But we met during the preparation of this talk, a contemporary painter of illuminated manuscript. Her name is Florence Azut, and she authorized us to show some of her videos. So she is a teacher, a copyist, and a creator of illuminated manuscripts. And currently, during the exhibition, she organized in Chantilly some workshops for the people to learn this wonderful art, this very precious and interesting technique. And we can see she works in the traditional way, using only natural materials, so the parchment, that is the skin of lamb or a veal or a goat, but very young, because the age is related to the fineness of the thickness of a leaf. And so it's complicated to create the parchment. She explained to me each step is a very long time. So it's an art that you need time to create an illumination. And she told me to be able to realize an entire page, an entire folio, you need at least 600 to 800 hours of work. So it's...
And you can imagine in the Très Riches Heures you have 131 illuminations. So how many hours are needed to complete that? Yeah.
And all the tools also, the brushes she uses, she likes when the brushes are not new because they become more adapted to a way to paint. So it's a very interesting way to discover illumination. Practicing illumination is it's very similar to what we do at l'École School of Jewelry Arts when we invite you to enroll in a course of stone setting or enamel or Japanese lacquer. So regarding the materials, all the materials used in illumination are precious.
Yes, but in the Très Riches Heures we discover that actually the gold was maybe in every page. And this is singular, this is original to the Très Riches Heures, golds in leaf or gold in painting. And that's what you see with Florence Azut's work, how illuminators proceed to produce this point or this large pattern of gold. And you have to imagine this kind of book was read with a candle. So the reflection was very important, and to provoke a devotion, obviously, it was a good way of having some divine sensation when you read your Book of Hours.
The most precious is the Word of God, and it deserves the most beautiful materials. So we thank Florence Azut for a video, very interesting.
Here.
And in agate.
In agate, yes.
Also we use gems as tools
Yes.
in this art. Silver also was used. Florence told us that today she doesn't use it anymore because of the oxidization, so she uses more white gold. Silver was much less expensive than gold, 10 times less expensive at that time. It's more, the difference is more today. Silver was used to create reflecting surfaces like water, and in this page,
Yeah,
Mathieu.
this is the month of August, and in the background you have these ponds with the silver used for the water, the reflection of the water, and you have some peasants swimming in the ponds. And you have to imagine that, so the silver is quite well preserved,
Yes,
but
right.
it used to be lighter and maybe, yes, providing more light and preciousness in that illumination.
But sometimes it becomes completely black.
Dark, yes, and it's not the case here.
And regarding the pigments, so in illumination, painters use only natural pigments of vegetal, animal, or mineral origins. And one of the most precious pigments, Mathieu,
is lapis lazuli. It was more precious, more expensive than gold, because it was produced in mine in Afghanistan. So you have to imagine some roads through the Silk Road to Mediterranean Sea, then to Venice, and then to France. So it came from very far away, and it was a pigment used for the heaven, for the skies, and for the dress of the Virgin. So the most precious and light and divine part of illuminations.
Absolutely. Other pigments could be used also depending on the region where the painter was working. Usually tried to use local minerals, materials. And in France we have the Chessy mines nearby Lyon, where we can find azurite and malachite. Both of them are copper carbonates, very similar. The difference is only in terms of iron. We have less copper ion in malachite than in azurite. But with water, with humidity, very often azurite becomes malachite. So azurite was used also for the blue color in illumination painting and in painting in general at that time. But the analysis of the Très Riches Heures showed that for the blue color, there is a very, very large amount of lapis lazuli, no azurite, no malachite, a little bit of indigo, but mostly lapis lazuli. And it's probably one of the reasons why we call it
Très Riches Heures, very rich hours, because very rich materials, and the techniques and the price actually of that book was so high at that time, and higher than the other books.
So the most expensive books in history. So regarding the inspiration and the fortune of the Très Riches Heures, so we can talk about Alberto Manguel book. It's a commentary on the calendar of the Très Riches Heures du Duc de Berry. And Alberto Manguel collaborated with us recently in our collection of books, the Dédale collection. So he wrote the foreword of the new edition of Robert Louis Stevenson Treasure Island. These are the precious books from Dédale. The binding is in black silk and gold. And we have also, so we publish different books related usually to gemstones, to jewels. And one is also from Stefan Zweig, so other kind of precious books of our time. Not the Très Riches Heures, but very nice books too. Thank you very much, Mathieu. So if you have questions, I would like to thank my colleagues who are doing the moderation, and they are providing me your questions. So we have a question about the collectioner at that period in Europe. Who else were famous collectors of gems in Europe at that time?
So at that time, the brothers of the Duc de Berry, especially the Duke of Burgundy, Philip the Bold, and then his son and grandson. They were great collectors, and their collection actually are now more or less in Vienna and in the German-speaking countries, because the Habsburg family is linked with the Duke of Burgundy. Another great collector was in Budapest, is Matthias Corvin, and during the 15th century he was a great collector in Central Europe of gems, of books, and we saw that in Prague also at that time. Great collectors during the 14th century were for gems and jewels. So yes, the Duc de Berry was not alone, but he was the highest and most impressive and important art lover and gems collectors.
And where can we admire the collection, if the collection survived over time?
Where? So every collection of that time is dispersed when it's conserved. So you have them in museums like Vienna, like Dresden, like London or Paris, and
the crown jewels of Bohemia.
Also in Prague. So yes, you have to visit museums in Europe actually. Some pieces in America also, but exhibitions provide good opportunities to gather together some treasures of the princes.
Was the book of our Très Riches Heures, I can imagine, influenced by Giotto's painting?
Yes, partly actually.
Good question.
It's a good question. It's a question of a specialist maybe. Actually, in one illumination, when you have the young Virgin Mary presented to the temple, you have a perspective, Italian perspective. And actually, the Lembo brother didn't go to Italy, to Florence,
but Padua?
Or Padua.
I was thinking about the Scrovegni chapel.
No, they didn't
But
go.
it's very blue too.
Exactly, but they had some knowledge of Italian art and the art of Giotto thanks to manuscripts and drawings that cross the Alps and were in the collection of the prince like the Duc de Berry. So through manuscripts and drawings, the new style can move and travel.
In illuminated manuscripts, did the same artist write and paint?
No, never. Actually, the art of copying is a specialty by itself, made by copists, professional copists, and illuminators. Illumination were made by illuminators or painters. So two different jobs, two different people.
And during the making, did they start with the painting or with the writing?
They usually start with the writing. And when the Duc de Berry died and the three illuminators died in 1416, actually all the text was written, but the illumination was not complete.
Question about the adornment presented in the Très Riches Heures. The adornment with leaves in the month of May for both men and women caught my eye there. What plants, symbolism?
So for the month of May, actually in May they celebrated the spring, the renewal of nature. So the women were dressed with green dress, with link with nature, and you have this procession of young men and women celebrating love and spring, and they have great outfits, usually given by the king to celebrate the 1st of May.
Question about the book in the Middle Ages. Illuminated manuscripts were essentially every book that was produced in the Middle, or were there a category of their own?
Actually, during the Middle Ages, the books of hours were the most important books. When you have some money, you wanted to have one book, one prayer book, you have a book of hours. But in great libraries like the Duc de Berry, you have many, many kind of books. Historical books, theological books, science books, history books. So every manuscript in Middle Ages are not only prayer or books of hours. Yes.
I think we are at the end of the presentation. Just to show you the bibliography, if you are interested to go deeper in the topic, and especially the reference books edited by Mathieu, Deldicque, and other books about the Très Riches Heures. So regarding l'école, so we have locations in different parts of the world, and each month we propose a different topic for an online conversation from Paris, from Hong Kong, Dubai, or Shanghai, or from elsewhere, like here today. So in this wonderful library of Château de Chantilly, it's a quite secretive place because it's not open to the public. And I would like to thank again Mathieu for his warm welcome, Mathieu and his team, here in this wonderful place. Thank you. Many thanks also to our team for this wonderful talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.